customer lifetime value to customer acquisition cost. Really important ratio in SaaS. However, what people miss is that one of them is way more important than the other. Customer lifetime value is the total amount of revenue that you will make during the customer's lifetime, divided by what it costs you to acquire that customer. You charge $1,000 per year for the customer and you keep them for whatever, 10 years. That means that you have 10K of customer lifetime value, right? So 1,000, 10 years, 10K total. And let's say that to acquire this customer, to sell them, you need to spend whatever, some paid advertising, you have a sales rep and so forth. So let's say that it costs you $2,000 to acquire this customer. So 2,000 over 10,000 is the CLV CAC of 5x, right? So you get 5 times as much money out of the customer compared to what you pay to get that customer. That is great. You should take that trade every day. Usually it tends to be that 4 to 5 is where you really start to see profitable growth happening, right? If it's 1, if it costs you 10,000 to get a customer and you will make 10,000 over a 10-year lifetime, you are not in business, right? You will just spend a lot of time to just acquire customers and you will make 0 profits and, no bueno. But if you actually are on a 1 to 5, that starts to be good. So it will still take you 2 years. So your CAC payback, the time it takes you to recoup or get the customer to pay for your sale is 2 years. That's long. Maybe we want it to go below 1 year, but still, given enough time, you're in business. Now, if you then want to improve this ratio and say, okay, so instead of 5x, could I do 10x? Well, there are 2 ways you can do that, right? You can either reduce your CAC to 1,000, right? Or you can increase either the time you have your customer or the price that they pay. So maybe you say, hey, we could also increase this to 2, right? So 2,000 times 10 years is 20K. So that will do the trick. And if we also do this where we reduce the CAC to 10,000, now we actually have a 20x CLV to CAC. Really good. This is like best in class. We can keep going here. So one of the points that I have, and one of the things that I often argue, is that people get too fixated on customer lifetime value to CAC. Because what happened here, right? Before we had 10K of revenue and 2K of cost. So we had, 8K of profits overall in the customer lifetime. We double this and we halve this, so we make it twice as good, right? So we got 20K here and 1K there. So now we have 19 worth of new value, right? So we have 19,000 in profit if we did this. However, where did most of that profit come from, right? So we went from 18 to 19,000 in profits. Well, 1,000 came from here and 10,000 came from there. So the majority of the profit improvement from the CLTV CAC came from the improvements in the CLTV. And that is something that most people miss, is that if we took this to $1, we would have 20,000x in our CLTV CAC, which is great, especially like if you can just pour money into this and just acquire like 1 million customers. You should of course do that. But very often there is a cap to how much we can spend on a CAC. There are just only so many people to be called, or so many people that is, or whatever, Googling your specific ad word and so forth. So even though it's very cheap, it doesn't actually help that much. What usually helps a lot more is to just work relentlessly on improving your lifetime value and then just forgetting about your CAC for a while. So let's say that we just did this. We just stabilized CAC at 2,000. So we have 2,000 here, so that means that we go to 20 here and 2,000 there. Like, what should we do next? If a genie came and say, I can either cut your CAC in half or I can double your customer lifetime value, which one should you do? Your CLTV CAC is going to be exactly the same in the 2 scenarios, but you should take the lifetime value any day of the week. Because if you double this again to 4, then you're going to get 40 here, right? And if you double it again to 8, you're going to get 80 there and so forth. So the profit expansion here is amazingly high, where here you can only go to 0. So the only amount of profit you can get from removing this is 2,000, right? But if you move this, you could, in principle, go to infinite, right? So, well, how much money can we potentially get out of customers? Well, I don't know, but a lot, right? How much can we potentially reduce CAC? Well, whatever it is, to 0. That's it. Second step is that whenever you're in a market, it tends to be that the customer acquisition cost that you have is pretty similar to whatever your competitors have, because it's an auction. You go into the marketplace and you try to spend money, or effort at least, to get your customers' attention. You have paid media, you have content, you call them, you do all the things to reach out to customers. So does your competitors. If you do it more, then you win more. But then your competitors just double down, they increase their spend, and suddenly your marketing and your sales works less good, because it's an auction. The more they spend, the more they drive up your CAC. Because it's an auction. You're bidding for buying the attention of your customers. Is that also true for your lifetime value? Not at all. If you invent products or services or pricing model that significantly better monetizes your customers, let's say your retention is half of your competitors and your pricing is twice as high because your product is just that much better, that means that you have 4 times the customer lifetime value compared to your competitors. I hope it's helpful to you. I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for listening.